Have you ever met someone who's deeply kind, always helping others, always living ethically, yet they still struggle financially their whole life? And you wonder, why are good people still poor? Doesn't Buddhism teach that if you do good, you should receive good karma in return? So, what went wrong? And then, there are people who didn't study much, don't seem to work that hard, yet somehow, they get rich really fast. Opportunities just keep showing up, and whatever they do, it works. Have you ever met someone like that and thought to yourself, maybe they're just born lucky and I'm not? Here's something else we rarely talk about. Some people do get rich, but their good fortune doesn't last. They start looking down on the poor. They get arrogant. They spend wastefully. And just a few years later, everything falls apart. Why does wealth disappear so quickly for some people? What decides whether we keep our blessings or lose them? My friends, today's topic isn't just about why some are rich and others are poor. It's a chance for all of us to look deeper into our own lives. Not every poor person is lazy, and not every rich person is smarter than the rest of us. Everything is shaped by cause and effect, and often, it's the things we don't see that shape our lives the most. What you're about to hear isn't just another lesson about money. It's a reminder. The way we live, the way we treat people, the way we give, the way we spend each dollar, all of it contributes to the karma we're building. Money can be a burden, or it can be a tool for merit if we use it the right way. So today, I invite you to take this journey with me as we explore the deeper causes behind wealth and poverty, and more importantly, how we can transform our lives. Not just to live with comfort, but to live with dignity, with inner peace, and with wisdom. 1. Money is a responsibility, not a privilege. One quiet afternoon, in a small Zen monastery tucked away in the peaceful suburbs of California, a man in his early 50s walked into the meditation hall. He wasn't dressed in fancy clothes, but his face carried the weight of someone who had lived through both success and deep confusion. He put his hands together respectfully and asked softly, "Master, I have everything I could ever ask for: money, status, well-behaved children, a beautiful home, and yet I feel so empty. It's like something inside me is slowly falling apart, even though, from the outside, people think I'm blessed." It wasn't a new question, but it wasn't an easy one to answer either, because it touches on something most people never really think deeply about: that money, if not understood correctly, can become a burden, not a blessing. In today's world, we often treat money in extremes. Either we chase it like it's the ultimate goal, or we judge it as something corrupt and distant from spiritual life. But Buddhism doesn't see money as something evil, nor does it glorify wealth as a sign of divine reward. From the perspective of karma, money is just a temporary result of merit we've accumulated. And those who hold wealth, they carry a great responsibility. Not everyone with money is a bad person, but not everyone with money realizes they're holding a debt of blessings. And that debt isn't paid with more money, it's paid through kindness, through generosity, through how we live and give. There's an old story from the Buddhist scriptures about a wealthy merchant in the city of Savatthi. He had hundreds of workers, massive storehouses of grain, and wealth beyond measure. But what made people respect him wasn't how much he had, but how he used it. He didn't donate just for fame. He didn't offer alms to be praised. When he saw someone in need, he helped quietly. When the monastery needed rice, he donated without putting his name on anything. When he noticed a young novice with no shoes, he left a pair of sandals by his door without a word. One day, the Buddha told the monks, "Those who use wealth wisely are planting seeds of merit for countless lifetimes. But those who use it only for indulgence and look down on the poor are burning their blessings like someone setting fire to a forest just to warm themselves for a moment. It sounds simple, but it's a deep teaching. Money itself isn't the problem, it's how we use it that defines our true worth. What's heartbreaking is that many people, the moment they get a little wealth, forget where they came from. Their tone shifts. Their eyes grow colder toward those struggling. They forget the pain they once walked through. Some even say things like, "I'm rich because I worked hard. I was poor because of bad luck." But the Buddha reminds us, wealth does not arise from intelligence alone, but from wholesome deeds across many lifetimes. Sure, intelligence can help us earn, but only merit keeps it from slipping away. Think about the lottery winners who gain millions and lose it all in a few short years. Or the successful entrepreneurs who fall ill, face lawsuits, or are betrayed. These aren't curses. They're signs that the merit behind the wealth has run dry. The ancients used to say, "Wealth without virtue is like strong wind hitting a straw hut. One good storm and everything is gone." But when your foundation is ethical, even poverty can't shake you. On the other hand, there are those who are wealthy but live simply. Not because they're stingy, but because they honor each dollar as a seed of merit. They don't spend carelessly. They don't show off. They eat modestly, live humbly, and use their resources to help others quietly and consistently. A Buddhist practitioner in Oregon once said, "Sometimes I look at my bank account and cry not because I'm afraid of losing money, but because I'm afraid of using it without gratitude." That one sentence says everything. Awareness of blessings runs deep. That's why a wise person doesn't ask, "How can I keep my money?" They ask, "How can I use my money in a way that honors karma?" In today's world, it's easy to idolize those with wealth and for those without to feel ashamed. But Buddhism teaches us, rich or poor is only temporary. The true question is, are we using our situation to grow or to create more suffering? Wealth can build bridges, fund schools, print Dharma books, support the elderly, and care for the sick. But it can also be used for intoxication, ego, and greed. Money is a tool. And like any tool, it can heal or harm depending on the heart of the one holding it. So, if you have money right now, ask yourself, is my wealth lifting others or burning through my blessings? Is it making me more humble or more arrogant? Is it feeding my compassion or numbing it? Pause. Look at how you're using your money. It'll show you the karma you're currently creating. The Buddha said, to offer material wealth is to share your merit. But to give with humility without judgment, that is how blessings endure. And in the end, when we truly understand that money is a responsibility, not a privilege, we stop fearing its loss, we stop clinging to its presence, and we stop judging others by what's in their wallet. We begin to see that having money doesn't guarantee happiness, and not having money doesn't mean you've failed. Money says nothing on its own. It only reveals the heart of the one who holds it. 2. Poverty can be a miraculous gift if we live with integrity. One winter afternoon, in the damp cold of Oregon, an elderly woman stopped by a small meditation center. She must have been in her 60s. Her coat was worn, her shoes were frayed. But she didn't come asking for money. She didn't complain about life. She simply poured herself a cup of hot tea and quietly sat by the window, watching the last few leaves fall from the trees. Someone might look at her and think, she's poor. But if you really paid attention, you'd see something different. Her face carried a strange kind of peace. No bitterness, no jealousy, no resentment, just stillness and the kind of soft smile that makes you wonder if she's holding a secret no one else can see. There are moments in life when poverty is no longer a burden. It becomes a quiet friend, one that leads us inward. It chisels away the rough edges of our ego. And in that space, something deeper begins to emerge. Because when you're poor, there's nothing left to hide behind. No fancy house to impress others, no luxury car to boost your image, no status to cover up insecurity. Just you, bare, vulnerable, but also authentic. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "A person poor in possessions but rich in loving, kindness, mindful and free from anger, is more worthy than the wealthy who live in ignorance and pride." There's truth in that. Poverty teaches patience. It teaches what it means to lack. And through that, it teaches us compassion for the hungry child, for the elderly left alone, for those who suffer like we do but still carry on with grace. A poor person, if they live with ethics without bitterness, without deceit, without trading dignity for a full stomach, can shine like a candle in the darkness. There are certain virtues that can only grow in hardship. Humility, gratitude, honesty. These are gems not always born in wealth. There's a story from one of the Buddha's past lives. He was born as a beggar. He lived on the edge of society, despised by many, chased away from doorsteps. But in that life, he learned deep humility, patience, and boundless compassion for all beings, regardless of class or status. If you've read the Jataka tales stories of the Buddha's previous lives, you'll know, before enlightenment, he lived many lives as a poor man, an outcast, even a prisoner. And it was through those lives that his heart was forged unshakable and wise. If poverty were a failure, would the Buddha have walked through it again and again? Society often sees poverty as a disadvantage, but in truth, it can be a beautiful doorway into spiritual depth. When we have nothing left to cling to on the outside, we are forced to look within. And in that moment, if even a small seed of awakening is present, it can begin to grow. Now, this isn't to glorify suffering. No one is saying you should be poor or that it's easy. But if you are going through poverty, don't fear it. Don't be ashamed of it. And most importantly, don't let it harden your heart. Some people, when poor, become bitter, jealous, or blameful. But others remain noble, compassionate, and full of dignity. The difference? Wisdom. A man once told us, "I'm poor, yes, but every day I find something to give. Even if it's just a kind word, a smile, or a bowl of soup for someone who's sick. That's wealth, wealth of spirit, wealth of character, wealth in karma." To give while having little is to create incredible merit, because when we give in poverty, we are overcoming our own fear of lack. We're saying to the universe, even though I don't have much, I still choose love. And here's the thing, soon after, that man's life turned around. But what's more inspiring is this. Even when he became more financially secure, he didn't change. He stayed humble. He didn't look down on anyone. He never bragged, because he knew the real value of every dollar, every meal, every smile. There's a truth not often spoken. When you're poor, you don't have the luxury of buying praise or hiding behind wealth. You have to live honestly, and that's where poverty shines. It makes us real. No masks, no pretenses, no pretending. If someone has gone through poverty without losing their integrity, then congratulations. They've passed a test many don't survive, one that can harden the soul or awaken it. The Buddha never said we must be rich to practice. He never said poverty is shameful. What he did teach is this. In whatever condition you find yourself, live with mindfulness, with virtue, and with compassion. A wise person, when poor, doesn't resort to cheating to escape it. They stay true to the path. They protect their heart. They cultivate goodness. And from that place, merit will come naturally. Merit doesn't come from begging the heavens. It comes from planting good seeds with understanding and with an unshaken heart. When we look back on the hard times in life, maybe the most precious thing isn't what we eventually gained, but what we came to understand. Some people, after being poor, learn to value every dollar. Some become more empathetic to the homeless. Some learn to live simply, spend wisely, and listen with a softer heart. And if we can keep that clarity even when life improves, then poverty has not been wasted on us. Poverty doesn't corrupt people. Our reaction to poverty shapes our character. And if that reaction is humility, gratitude, and kindness, then poverty becomes the greatest gift life could have offered. You may not want to unwrap that gift, but if life hands it to you, learn to open it with a spacious heart. Because within it, you might discover a version of yourself that is deeper, more loving, and more unshakable than anything money could buy. And when we truly understand poverty in this way, we no longer judge people by their wallet. We begin to see that someone in worn-out clothes could be a hidden sage. We stop comparing. We stop condemning. And we start looking at others through the eyes of compassion, just like the Buddha looked at all beings, lifetime after lifetime. 3. True blessings belong to those who know when to yield. Have you ever wondered, where does true blessing really lie? Is it in the big houses, the fat bank accounts, or the glowing reputation that the world praises so highly? From the outside, a person with blessings often looks like someone who has more money, more opportunities, more connections. But if you look through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, true merit isn't just about what we have. It's also about what we're able to let go of. One of the quietest and most profound signs of someone with deep blessings is their ability to yield when it matters. There's a story in the Jataka Tales accounts of the Buddha's past lives that goes like this. Long ago, two friends were walking through a forest gathering firewood. Along the path, they stumbled upon a priceless gem. Both of them saw it, both bent down to pick it up, but one of them said, "You keep it. I believe that if this blessing is meant for me, it will come in its own time." The other man was deeply moved. They remained close friends and ended up sharing all the good that came from that gem. In the end, both became wealthy not because of the gem itself, but because of that moment, that seed of generosity and humility that was planted. Some people might brush that off. It was just a small gesture. But it's often the small gestures that shape the big outcomes. In life, the wiser we are, the more we understand the power of knowing when to step back. We've all seen relationships fall apart, siblings who no longer speak, spouses who split over pride, friends who cut ties over minor disputes, coworkers who turn on each other over credit or recognition. But then there are those who, even in the heat of anger, find the strength to lower their voice, to take a step back, to protect the dignity of others, and to walk away with their peace intact. These are the people who create lasting fortune, not just in the world, but in their hearts. An older Buddhist practitioner once shared this with me. Years ago, I went into business with a relative. When we started making money, he took the lion's share, and I was left with almost nothing. My friends told me to sue him, but I chose to stay silent not because I was weak, but because I didn't want to turn our bond into hatred. 10 years later, that relative went bankrupt. As for me, even though I started from scratch, people always showed up to support me. Today, I live with enough and with a heart free from bitterness. That's not a fairy tale, that's real life. It happens more often than we think. We just don't always notice that yielding at the right moment is one of the most powerful seeds for future blessings. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, "One who is humble, who yields without grasping or quarreling, is planting vast fields of merit for many lifetimes to come." No one loses everything by yielding, but only those who yield with integrity, who yield not out of fear, but from wisdom, are the ones who gain long-lasting merit. Now, this doesn't mean we always have to bow down or stay silent. It's not about letting others walk all over us. It's about protecting our peace, our dignity, and our ethics from being stained by momentary anger or ego. At a retreat for entrepreneurs in Southern California, someone once asked, "If I keep yielding, won't people think I'm weak? Won't they take advantage of me? How do I know when to yield and when to take a stand?" That's a great question, and here's the answer. Look at what you're trying to hold on to and what you're at risk of losing. If you're clinging to a few words just to win an argument, but losing a relationship or your inner peace, then losing is actually winning. If you're grasping for a little extra profit but sacrificing your reputation and integrity, then your gain becomes your loss. Yielding is not defeat. It's a conscious choice. It's placing wisdom and virtue above personal emotions. Many arguments lead nowhere, just pain on both sides. But the person who chooses to step back to preserve respect and compassion is often the one people remember and admire the most. A truly fortunate person isn't someone who always wins every fight. It's someone who knows what's worth holding on to and what's okay to release. Think about the sages and enlightened beings throughout history. They didn't waste energy on petty disputes, not because they couldn't win, but because they knew victory in conflict is an illusion. What we lose, however, is very real. Our calm, our kindness, our karma. There's a story about the Buddha being insulted by a non-believer while giving a teaching. The Buddha didn't respond. He simply sat quietly. When the man finally stopped shouting, the Buddha asked him, "If someone offers you a gift, but you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" The man answered, "To me." The Buddha smiled. "Then in the same way, your angry words, if I don't accept them, still belong to you." That is wisdom-based yielding. It's not passivity, it's power. The kind of power that doesn't need to shout. The kind of intelligence that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind of compassion that doesn't need to explain because it's felt. Every day, we get opportunities to practice this kind of restraint. In our homes, it's the moment when spouses choose peace over being right. At work, it's when we prioritize the greater good over personal credit. In society, it's when we let someone else go first, in traffic or in life. And each time we choose to yield in those moments, we're planting a seed. Not a seed of loss, but a seed of prosperity. Because true fortune doesn't come from what we grab, but from what we can let go of, at the right moment, with a pure heart. So, if you're facing a difficult situation where you know you're right, but fighting will only cause harm, take a breath. Ask yourself, what's truly worth holding on to? What can I yield without losing myself? And if you can choose calm over anger, compassion over pride, and letting go over ego, you're planting a powerful karmic seed. One that life will repay not just with success, but with peace and clarity that no victory can match. 4. Not all poor people are stingy, and not all rich people are virtuous. Karma is complex. One day, during a Dharma talk at the monastery, a man stood up and asked, "Teacher, I see people out in the world who are really cruel, but they're rich, and others who are kind, generous, and hardworking, but they remain poor. So, is karma really fair?" The entire room went quiet. It was a question many people have probably asked themselves, but rarely voiced out loud. Because deep down, we all want to believe the world works in a clear, moral way. Good people should be rewarded. Bad people should suffer consequences. But life doesn't always play out like that. And that's when we need to understand this truth. Karma isn't a simple math equation, do good, do bad, get bad. Karma is not a one-way formula. It's a deeply interwoven web, shaped by countless lifetimes, countless choices, and most of all, the state of our own heart. The Buddha never said, "Rich people are always the ones who made merit," or "Poor people are poor because they were selfish or immoral." That's a surface-level judgment that misses the full picture. There are people who were once incredibly generous, who donated, who helped the poor, who supported temples, but in this lifetime, they were born into poverty. Not because they didn't sow merit, but because they also created other karmic causes, at the same time anger, wrong views, unwholesome intentions. Like a field where many seeds are planted, not all of them sprout at the same time. On the flip side, there are people who've done wrong, but in past lives they made sincere offerings to monks, cared for their parents, saved someone's life. Those good actions ripen into wealth today. But the consequences of their harmful actions, those come later, like rain arriving in different seasons. There's a story in the Buddhist scriptures. One day, Venerable Ananda saw a wealthy man in the city of Savatthi. This man was famously stingy, never helped anyone, never donated. People disliked him. Yet he lived a long life, stayed healthy, and his fortune only grew. Ananda brought this situation to the Buddha. The Buddha said, "In the past, this man made many offerings to the Sangha with a pure heart. That's why he enjoys good fortune now. But because his current heart is filled with greed and selfishness, he will be reborn into suffering in the future." Then the Buddha concluded, karma is never lost, but it ripens at the right time, under the right conditions. To see clearly, one needs the eye of wisdom, not just the eyes of the flesh. Hearing this, maybe someone out there will feel a little relief. Maybe you've lived kindly but haven't seen the reward yet. Maybe you've done the right thing in silence, without applause, without recognition. But in the light of Dharma, no act of kindness is ever wasted. No karmic seed falls into the void. Each one blooms in its own time. So instead of worrying about why someone is rich or poor, it's more important to turn inward and ask, is my heart wholesome? Are my actions honest? Do I use money wisely? Do I look at the poor with compassion or with judgment? Because wealth and poverty aren't just material conditions, they're reflections of our inner state. A person can be poor, but if they still hold on to kindness, still feel joy when others are happy, still give even a little when they can, then that person is planting powerful seeds of merit. On the other hand, a rich person who is cold, ungrateful, and self-centered is burning through their blessings with every passing day. In Buddhism, karma is created by three things: body, speech, and mind. That means our actions, our words, and our thoughts. Many people focus only on actions, donating money, volunteering, but forget that the intention behind those actions is the root. If we help others with arrogance or a desire for praise, the blessing is small. But if we give with humility and joy, the blessing is limitless. Some people are poor, but live with a pure heart. They don't complain. They don't envy. That alone is creating good karma every single day. Meanwhile, some rich people are trapped in anger, anxiety, and suspicion. Their wealth is just a shell. The Buddha once said, "There is no such thing as coincidence. No one is born wealthy for no reason. No one is poor without a cause. But also no one is forever bound by fate. Each person is the skilled craftsman of their own future." Which means, no matter where we are today, we still have a choice. If you're struggling financially, don't lose hope. If you're doing well, don't grow arrogant. Keep living with kindness. Stay honest. Care for others. And the blessings will come right on time. Maybe not in the form of a bigger bank account, but in the form of deep peace that no amount of money can buy. One day, a middle-aged woman came to visit a monk. She lived in poverty, caring for her elderly mother, juggling 2 jobs just to survive. But she always wore a gentle smile and spoke kindly. She said, "I don't have much, but whenever I have a little extra, I give to the temple or share with those worse off. Some people tell me I'm foolish. You're poor and you still give? But I feel happy when I share. I'm not rich, but my heart doesn't feel poor. And you know what? She wasn't poor at all. She was living with a kind of inner abundance that many wealthy people never find. So if there's ever a moment when life feels unfair, remember, karma hasn't forgotten you. Everything is unfolding in the right way, at the right time, so you can learn the lessons you need most. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this: live with integrity no matter how rich or poor you are. Watch your heart every day. Treat people with respect. Choose a way of life that doesn't create new karma. Because when you live with wisdom and compassion, your path will always lead toward light no matter where you start. 5. Living simply is a way to preserve your blessings. There's something interesting I've noticed in life. People who've been through real hardship, those who've known what it's like to go without, often understand deeply the value of a bowl of rice, a drop of water, a single dollar. But those who've always lived in comfort, they tend to forget. And sometimes, when people become more prosperous, when they finally have enough, maybe even more than enough, the first thing they lose is their sense of appreciation. They stop valuing their food. They waste water, electricity. They take other people's effort for granted. They forget how lucky they are. But in the Buddhist teachings, living simply and mindfully isn't just a good habit, it's a way of preserving our merit. Because blessings, just like a flowing stream, may come from good seeds we've planted in the past. But if we use them carelessly, without mindfulness, that stream will dry up, not overnight, but slowly, drop by drop, until one day, it's gone. Some people say, "I've got money. I can spend however I want." And sure, in Buddhism, spending money isn't a sin if it's done with awareness. But when you spend just to show off, to feed your ego, or because you never feel like it's enough, that's how blessings leak away. A Buddhist once shared this with me. Back when we were poor, we had just plain rice and boiled vegetables, but we felt grateful for every meal. Now that we're well off, the table's full, but nothing tastes special anymore. I don't feel that same appreciation, and that simple reflection reveals something powerful. If wealth isn't paired with gratitude and mindfulness, poverty can return. But if someone lives, simply pays attention to every grain of rice, every drop of water, then blessings are quietly growing in the background. The Buddha once said, "A person who knows how to be content is the richest of all." And he also taught, not wasting what has been given is a form of spiritual practice. In ancient times, monks would go on alms, rounds, and only eat what was given, never hoarding, never wasting. Even a torn robe was treated like treasure, not because they liked it, but because it was part of their path to liberation. Today, everything is so convenient. Food, electricity, water. But that very ease has caused many of us to lose our awareness. Some people leave lights on in empty rooms. Some cook big meals only to throw away leftovers. Some buy more than they need just to feel less empty inside. These actions may seem small, but through the lens of karma, they're not neutral. They quietly chip away at our merit. Every grain of rice came from somewhere. The farmer, the truck driver, the cook, the rain, the sun, the earth. So when we throw food away, we're not just wasting calories. We're ignoring the efforts of the whole universe that brought it to us. Every drop of water came through a long journey, through nature and through the hands of people maintaining our systems. To waste it without thought is to forget our interdependence. Every cup, shirt, household item we own is a resource. And when we misuse them, they become clutter. When we value them, they become tools of gratitude. There's a story about an old layman, over 80 years old, living in a modest house outside the city. His children were successful. The family had means. But he still washed his own dishes, cleaned his space, and reminded his grandchildren not to waste. One day, his grandson asked, "Grandpa, we're not poor. Why save so much?" And the old man smiled and said calmly, "Saving isn't about being poor. It's about keeping your mind from becoming careless. A mindful heart preserves blessings. We should live in a way that even with abundance, we don't create new karma." That statement may sound simple, but it holds deep wisdom. Living simply doesn't make you small. It makes you deep. It trains your heart to be grateful. It teaches you to slow down. And more than anything, it keeps you from being swept away by indulgence, which is one of the quickest ways to lose your spiritual balance. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha praised those who take care of their resources, food, clothes, tools, and said, "Those who protect what they have are protecting their own merit." And he added, "The foolish, no matter how wealthy, if they don't take care, will see their fortunes slip through their fingers like water on sand." So clearly, simplicity is not stinginess. It's being mindful with every choice we make. Once, during a Dharma talk, someone asked me, "But Bhante, I live simply, but people around me call it outdated or weird. What should I do?" The answer is simple. If your way of living doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't cause suffering, and isn't rooted in attachment, then keep going. Live with the lightness that comes from enough. Living simply doesn't mean don't spend. It means spend wisely on what's truly needed. Not to compete, not to impress, not to fill a void. Just with gratitude. In Buddhism, blessings don't just come from building temples or making grand offerings. They come from how we live each day. Turning off lights when not in use. Taking care of your belongings. Not wasting food. Avoiding the habit of use and toss. Teaching children to value what they already have. We live in a world facing resource depletion, climate change, overconsumption, and the way each of us lives, no matter how small, contributes to that. So saving is no longer just a personal lifestyle. It's an ethical act, a form of compassion for all beings. Saving energy reduces harm to nature. Saving water preserves life for future generations. Saving food prevents waste when others go hungry. Saving resources means creating less trash and less karmic burden. And when you get used to living this way, something beautiful happens. Life becomes simpler. The heart gets quieter. There's more room for peace. Because you're no longer trapped in the cycle of, "I need more." Maybe this is one of the simplest and most powerful forms of practice. Starting right in your own kitchen, your bathroom, your desk. So if today you're living in abundance, start by practicing moderation. If you're living modestly, continue to take care of what you have. And if you're struggling, know that just by living mindfully, you're already planting seeds of future blessings. Don't wait until it's gone to appreciate what you have. Start honoring it now. And that, more than anything, is what makes you truly rich. 6. Arrogance makes blessings fade. Stay humble, especially when you're rich. There's a quiet truth in life that many people realize too late. Blessings don't stay with those who forget how to bow their heads. They come when your heart is open, and they leave when your ego becomes too big to hold gratitude. Now, being wealthy is not wrong. Having success, possessions, status, that could all be the good results from past lives of generosity and virtue. But the moment pride sneaks in, that wealth is no longer a blessing. It becomes the seed of its own collapse. It's like a tree branch, heavy with fruit. If it refuses to bend, to lower itself, it snaps. Not because someone cut it, but because of its own weight. People often ask, why do some wealthy people keep rising while others lose everything in just a few years? The answer lies in this: how they treat others once they become successful. The rich who stay humble, who still speak kindly to those beneath them, who respect their employees, who don't look down on the poor, their blessings multiply. But those who think they're better than others, who treat wealth as a badge of superiority, their merit begins to leak away. Not all at once, but little by little from within. The Buddha gave a short teaching that's often quoted. Conceit is the root of samsara. Why? Because a prideful person can no longer learn. They stop seeing their flaws. They stop bowing. They stop caring about those with less. And without knowing it, they drift far from the path. Even great merit without wisdom can be misused. But small merit, when combined with humility, can grow into mountains. There's an old Buddhist story. Long ago, a wealthy merchant was widely admired for his riches and influence. He donated generously to the temple. He gave often, but in his heart, he looked down on others. He saw fellow temple-goers as beneath him. He thought beggars at the gate were worthless or lazy. One day, he passed by an old monk in tattered robes and didn't even bow, thinking, he's probably not even practicing properly. That night, he dreamed of wandering in total darkness. No matter how much money he had, he couldn't buy even a flicker of light. And a deep, sorrowful voice said, "Your merit is like a lamp, but the wick is humility. When the wick is gone, the light goes out, and you will remain in darkness." He woke up in a cold sweat. From that day on, he changed. He still gave. He was still wealthy. But every time he helped someone, he bowed. Every time he saw someone struggling, he listened, truly listened, as if they were his teachers. Whether or not the story is real doesn't matter. What matters is the truth it reveals. Wealth is not a pedestal to stand on, it's a chance to bow deeper and grow more merit. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, "One who possesses much wealth but lacks humility, generosity, or kind speech is like a full pot with no lid. It will spill out soon." Pride isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides in your eyes, in your silence, in the way you walk past someone without seeing them. Have you ever seen someone walk into a fancy restaurant, talk down to the staff, shout orders, act like they own the place? And then you see someone else dressed simply, speaking gently, saying thank you to the person cleaning their table. Both ate the same meal, but one is burning through their blessings. The other is preserving them through mindful living. Some people think, "I'm rich because I'm smart. I built this. I deserve it." But no one succeeds alone. Behind every success is support from family, employees, community, and deeper still, blessings from past good deeds. A successful entrepreneur once said, "The moment I start thinking I'm special, that's the moment I begin to fail." So he made it a habit to visit poor neighborhoods each month, not to give, but to remember where he came from. People who are truly grounded are often deeply humble because they know pride blinds you from seeing your own self. And when you can no longer see yourself clearly, you're most vulnerable to falling. There's a great analogy in Buddhist teachings. A boat full of water, if you don't scoop it out, it'll sink. Likewise, if you have too much merit and don't share it, that merit becomes a burden. But if you use your wealth to lift others, support your community, and serve the Dharma, your boat doesn't just float, it moves forward. The real question is not, how long can I stay rich? But rather, am I using this wealth to plant good seeds? Because blessings won't stay with someone who ignores karma. And they can't last in a heart that's cold, arrogant, or indifferent to the poor. So how can you tell if pride is sneaking in? Ask yourself, do I look down on anyone? Do I get angry when someone gives me feedback? Do I avoid the poor because I think they're beneath me? Do I feel annoyed when I have to serve someone else? If yes, don't panic. It's not a huge sin, but it is a signal, a chance to wake up. Humility doesn't always look like plain clothes. Sometimes it simply means not judging someone who lives differently from you, thinking kind thoughts even if you don't say anything, knowing deep down that you're not better than anyone. The poor person you see today might have been wealthy in their past life, and the rich person you admire now may soon face a reversal. That's the nature of karma. Nothing is permanent. Only how you live now shapes what comes next. And if there's one prayer for those living in abundance, maybe it's this: may I stay humble enough to not lose the very blessings I've been given. Because in the end, humility doesn't shrink us. It expands us in quiet, steady ways. It's like the roots of a tree. You don't see them, but they're what keep the whole tree standing tall. 7. When the poor give, it's a virtue far greater than gold. There's something in life that not everyone understands right away. Virtue doesn't require wealth, and often, kindness shines the brightest in the places where people have the least. Have you ever seen a poor person give? Not because they had extra, not because they were comfortable, but simply because they couldn't bear to see someone else suffer, just like they had. I remember one trip to a remote village, delivering charity supplies. We met an elderly woman, about 70 years old, living alone in a small, run-down shack made of palm leaves. When we handed her a bag of rice, she broke down in tears, not out of joy for receiving it, but because she wanted to share some of it with her neighbor, who in her eyes was struggling even more than she was. No one said a word. The whole group just stood there in silence, as if we were witnessing a living sermon. No lectures, no scriptures, just pure humanity. In the Buddhist Teachings, there's a line that says, "Giving while in hardship brings 100 times more merit than giving in abundance." Why is that? Because when the poor give, they're not giving from surplus. They're giving from what they need. They're splitting a meal that was already too small so someone else can eat. In today's world, we often measure generosity in numbers. Who donates the most money gets the most praise, media coverage, and awards. But in the eyes of the Buddha, the value of giving isn't in the amount, it's in the heart behind it. $1 million from someone wealthy might just be a token offering. But a coin from someone struggling might mean they've gone a day without food just to offer warmth to another soul. There's a story in the Dhammapada that goes like this. The Buddha and his monks were passing through a famine-stricken region. People there were exhausted, barely able to feed themselves, let alone give. But one poor widow, living alone and surviving by collecting dry leaves to make charcoal, scraped together the last few grains of rice from her pouch to offer to the Buddha. After giving, she sat down and cried, not because she regretted it, but because she worried her tiny offering wasn't worthy of the Blessed One. The Buddha looked at her for a long time and then said to his disciples, "Though this offering is small, its light shines brightly in the realm of karma, for she gave with her whole heart and held nothing back for herself. Her merit will be a peace that no amount of money can measure." That's the thing. Great virtue doesn't lie in what's given. It lies in the spirit that gives it. In our modern world, many people say, "I'll help when I have more. I'll give once I'm rich. I'll share when my life is in a better place." But while they're waiting to have enough, so many people are suffering right now. And then there are others, ordinary people, who don't wait to be wealthy. They don't wait to have extra. They just share, simply because they see someone hurting more than they are. One old man who drove a 3-wheeled cart once told me, "I earn about a few dollars a day. I eat enough to get by and save the rest for someone who might need it more. As long as I'm alive and can still move, I can still share." He never made the news. No one gave him an award, but everyone who met him felt it. There's a kind of wealth that can't be measured in dollars. It's measured in the size of the heart. In the path of spiritual practice, we learn a powerful truth. A small gift, given with a big heart, plants the seed of long-lasting happiness. But a large gift, given with little heart, might just be an empty shell. No one says you shouldn't dream of success. But if you're waiting to get rich before you start being kind, you might find by the time the money comes, your heart has already gone poor. Many people who are financially poor are actually rich in faith. They believe in karma. They believe in goodness. They believe that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple through the fabric of life. That faith gives them strength to open their hearts, even in hardship. There's a quote I once heard that stayed with me. Don't judge someone by how much they give. Look at their circumstances when they gave it. It sounds simple, but it cuts deep. In Buddhism, when someone gives in poverty, it's called dana that overcomes fear. The fear of not having enough tomorrow. The fear of losing what little you have. But still they give. Because they just can't turn away from someone else's pain. That is an incredible kind of courage. You've probably seen kids in poor mountain villages barefoot, in ragged clothes, yet still willing to share their only piece of candy with another child. More generous than some adults, who may have pantries full of food, but have never thought of giving any away. That's the precious thing. In the law of karma, actions aren't counted in dollars, they're counted in compassion. And when your heart is big, even a sip of water or a crumb of bread can plant the seed of peace for lifetimes to come. So, if anyone listening right now is thinking, I'm poor, I have nothing to give, please remember, giving isn't always about money. A timely word of encouragement, a compassionate gaze, listening with your full heart. These are all forms of giving, and sometimes they're worth more than money. A wise person doesn't wait until they have it all to live kindly. They live kindly right in the middle of their struggles, because they know the way we live today is the letter we send to our future. It's the seed of our blessings to come. Some people say, helping others is a privilege only for the wealthy. But in Buddhism, the truth is often the opposite. It's the poor who give that generate the greatest merit. In a world obsessed with money, numbers, and achievements, a single, sincere heart that gives is the most valuable asset. It can't be stolen. It doesn't lose value with time. It doesn't need praise, because the universe and the law of karma see every small act that comes from a big heart. So if today you have just $5 for breakfast and you meet someone hungrier than you and you choose to share half, then you've just planted a powerful seed. And who knows? Maybe in your next life, you won't need to split your meal. You'll have enough to feed 100 people. The world doesn't change when one millionaire gives once. But it can change when millions of everyday people, even in struggle, keep giving small acts of kindness every day. And if there's still some hesitation in your heart, if you still feel unsure, if you still think you're not ready to give, please remember this beautiful teaching from the Buddha. No one is too poor to give something, and no one is too rich to not need love. So if life is hard for you right now, don't think you're lesser. If your heart is still kind, you are rich in a way the world may never fully understand. And from that very place, transformation begins. 8. Blessings don't last unless you keep creating them. Have you ever thought of blessings like a reservoir of water? If you keep drawing from it without refilling, one day, it's going to run dry. We often pray for blessings for good health, a peaceful family, financial stability, smooth work. But how often do we ask ourselves, am I actually maintaining or adding to my blessings? Or are we just living day to day as if these blessings are permanent gifts, something we're entitled to, something that can never be lost? The truth is, blessings are like energy. They're not infinite if you don't keep feeding them. The Buddha never taught that merit lasts forever, not unless you keep planting new seeds. There's an old story from the Buddhist scriptures about a wealthy merchant named Sumana. He lived during the Buddha's time and gave generously to many, without hesitation. But in his later years, he withdrew from life. He stopped giving, stopped serving, and simply enjoyed the fruits of his past good deeds. Over time, his life began to fall apart. Sickness came. Conflict rose within his family, and his wealth slowly vanished. Someone asked the Buddha, why would a man who had created such great merit fall into suffering later in life? And the Buddha answered, a field once planted will grow dry and barren if it's not nurtured again each season. In the same way, blessings fade when they are not nourished through continued acts of service. And maybe this is a wake-up call for some of us, because we may have believed that doing a few good deeds in life is enough. But in Buddhism, it's not just about what you do, it's about how you live every single day. Some people are excellent at saving money, but not so great at saving merit. They're careful with every dollar they spend, but they waste their spiritual wealth through anger, judgment, laziness, or ingratitude. Not doing bad isn't enough. Not helping others means missing a chance to keep your blessings alive. Not serving is silently draining your merit without you even realizing it. There's an elderly woman in a remote village I once visited. She didn't have much, but every day she would go to the temple, sweeping the courtyard, picking up trash, brewing tea for visitors. When someone asked her, why do you do all this? What are you hoping to get? She smiled and said, I'm not doing it to get anything. I just don't want to forget to be grateful. And in that spirit of not expecting anything, she became the richest person in the eyes of the Buddha. Why? Because she was creating merit. Not with money, not with fame, but with a heart full of service. That kind of heart keeps the blessings flowing. The Buddha once said, what is created will eventually decay. What is not created will never be. Merit is the same way. To have it, you must plant it. To keep it, you must keep planting. No one can hold on to blessings without living well every day. It's like a lamp that needs to be refilled with oil. It's like a body that needs nourishing food. And just like that, your heart needs to be fed with kindness, forgiveness, gratitude, and even the smallest of good deeds. A man in his 50s once told me, I used to do a lot of good things. I thought that was enough. But as time went on, my life felt like it was quietly losing its light, and I didn't know why. After going through a major crisis, he began serving again, helping neighbors move furniture, sweeping temple grounds, caring for his aging parents. And he said, slowly, I started feeling light come back into my life. Not because I was making more money, but because my heart stopped feeling empty. So if your life today feels stable, ask yourself, am I standing on blessings I once created, or am I still creating them today? If you feel like you've been lucky, don't just enjoy it. Give back. If you've been helped by others when you were down, don't forget to return that kindness to the world. You don't need perfect conditions to start doing good. Every single kind act, no matter how small, is one more day your blessings stay alive. I once met an elderly man in California. He was almost 80, but every week he'd come to the temple wiping tables, tending the garden, taking out the trash. When someone asked, why don't you rest more? He simply smiled and said, because I'm afraid that any day I don't do something for someone is a day my merit quietly slips away. It sounds simple, but it's so powerful, isn't it? He may not be rich, but he understands where true wealth lies. Not in a bank account, but in your ability to keep giving without running out of heart. And that's exactly what the Buddha taught. The one with true merit is the one who never stops planting seeds of goodness in every breath, every word, and every action. Because life doesn't stand still, and neither do our blessings. If you're not building them, they start fading. Not because someone takes them away, but because we let them leak away through a life of selfishness, forgetfulness, or endless indulgence. So if today you still have strength, use that strength to do something good. If you still have intelligence, use it to bring benefit to others. If you still carry love, let it reach those who need it most. Because every moment lived with a heart of service is a moment that preserves your blessings for tomorrow. And maybe, just maybe, it's the only way to keep your life from feeling empty, even when on the outside everything looks full. 9. When you're poor, don't be so quick to blame others. There are times when life backs you into a corner. You're struggling financially, you feel stuck, maybe even looked down upon. And the first reaction many people have is blame. Blaming fate. Blaming their parents for not giving them a better start. Blaming society for being unfair. Blaming people for being heartless. Some even blame the heavens or the Buddha. But here's the truth. Blaming doesn't ease the pain. It doesn't fix anything. It only weighs your heart down and piles on more karmic debt. There's a deep, sometimes uncomfortable teaching in Buddhism. When something keeps repeating in your life, it's not because of someone else. It's your own karma ripening. And poverty is no exception. It's not a punishment. It's not a life sentence. It's a message, an invitation to look inward, to look deeper. I remember a middle-aged man who once came to see a forest monk. His face looked tired. His clothes were worn, his voice heavy with bitterness. He told the monk about all the years he'd worked hard and still remained poor. How no one helped him. How people betrayed him. How he lost everything because of the cruelty of others. The monk sat silently, listening, then gently asked, "Of everything you've just said, what part of it are you willing to take responsibility for?" The man went quiet, then gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe I trusted people too easily. Maybe I was greedy at times. Maybe I didn't know when to stop. Maybe I never learned how to protect my blessings." The monk nodded slowly. "The moment you said maybe it was me is the moment your karma started to shift." You see, there are many reasons someone might be poor. But the more you blame, the more your heart shrinks. The more you point fingers, the more you close the door on transformation. The Buddha taught, a wise person does not blame anyone because they understand that every circumstance is the fruit of past mind states. It may sound harsh, but actually, it's freeing. Because if your hardship is due to your own karma, you have the power to change it. But if it's all because of someone else, you're stuck, powerless. The truth is, people with deep inner strength, they rarely blame, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they want to be the ones who walk themselves out of it. I've met many elderly women in rural temples. They live in poverty, no children, no possessions. Yet their hearts are so peaceful. No resentment, no comparisons. They simply live each day as a whole, complete day. They'd often say, "Maybe in a past life I didn't do enough good. So this life, I'm doing my best to start again." And that mindset, that quiet acceptance, is the beginning of a new life. They don't wait until they're rich to be joyful. They don't wait for abundance to live beautifully. Once, during a Q&A with young Buddhist students, someone asked me, "But teacher, what if I've looked deeply and honestly, and I truly haven't done anything bad? Why am I still poor?" And the answer is, it may not be from this life. It could be the result of harsh words, wastefulness, arrogance at some point in the past, long forgotten by you. But karma doesn't forget. It waits until it's ripe. Then it shows up. So those who walk the path of Dharma don't dwell on remembering every past mistake just to torture themselves. They reflect in order to let go and transform. There's a beautiful verse from the Dhammapada. Even if one has done wrong, if they sincerely repent and live differently, that karma can dissolve like a cloud breaking apart after rain. Which means poverty is not the end. It's just a chapter. The real question is, what do you do after that chapter? If you cling to blame, you prolong the suffering. If you take responsibility, you begin writing a new karmic story. Lighter, brighter. I once knew someone who lived in a tiny rented room, barely 100 square feet, worked all day, ate simple meals. But whenever someone else needed help, even just a little bit of change they gave. Not because they had extra, but because they cared. And it was in those small, selfless acts that a new karmic story began. Not by waiting until they were rich, but by living generously while still poor. You see, the story of Buddhism isn't about guilt. It's about transformation. It's not about saying poor people are bad. It's about reminding us all. You can rewrite your karma if you're willing to look inward. Poverty doesn't make you small. It's the bitterness that does. It's the blame that limits your growth. Someone once told me, I'm poor because I've sacrificed too much for others. But true sacrifice, when done with a vast heart, will shift your karma. If it's filled with resentment or regret, then it's no longer merit. It becomes a burden. The Buddha never told us to suffer blindly. He simply invited us to look honestly and gently set down the blame, so we can finally see the moment we take responsibility is the moment the path starts to open. And from there, we learn one of life's deepest lessons. There is nothing more powerful than a heart that takes ownership. No blaming, no excuses, just a quiet, steady intention to live more kindly each day. Because when a poor person begins to transform their mind, they're not just changing their own life, they're planting new seeds for everyone who comes after them. 10. Gratitude is the root of lasting wealth. There's something truly mysterious about life. A lot of people think wealth comes from hard work, clever planning, or seizing the right opportunities. And yes, those things matter. But they're only part of the picture. There's a deeper layer, one that not everyone notices. True, lasting wealth begins with a heart full of gratitude. You don't need to read tons of spiritual books to understand this. Just observe life quietly and sincerely. People who live with gratitude, they're never really alone. Whether they're rich or poor, there's always someone helping them quietly, guiding them, placing a warm hand on their back when they stumble. Not because they're begging for help, but because people cherish them for their loyalty, their warmth, their heart that remembers. One time, during a Dharma talk at a monastery in Northern California, a middle-aged woman stood up and asked, "Teacher, how can I build more merit? I work hard, I live decently, but I'm always struggling." The teacher smiled gently and asked, "Do you often speak about the love and sacrifice of your parents? Do you still remember those who helped you in the past? Do you send silent thank yous to the people who simply listened when you were hurting?" The woman lowered her head and whispered, "Maybe not enough." You see, a grateful person doesn't have to say much, but people can feel it in the way they live. The way someone bows deeply when they mention their teacher. The way their eyes soften when talking about their mother. The tear that quietly falls when someone brings up an old act of kindness. That's not weakness. That's depth. And that depth is what creates blessings. The Buddha said, One who lives with gratitude has great spiritual roots. They are protected by divine beings and beloved by people because they carry the light of kindness and loyalty in their hearts. On the flip side, someone who's ungrateful, no matter how talented or rich, often ends up isolated. Because who wants to stay near someone who only takes and never remembers? But a grateful person? They might not say much, but everywhere they go, people care. Support shows up. Life gently opens up. There's a story in the Jataka tales about one of the Buddha's past lives. It tells of a deer wounded in the forest. A kind woodcutter nursed it back to health. And every day after, the deer brought forest fruits to the man as a quiet way of saying thank you. It couldn't speak, but the gratitude touched the man deeply for life. And if even an animal can do that, how much more should we, as humans? Here in the US, I've met many quiet people working blue-collar jobs, not wealthy, not highly educated. But the entire community respects them because they often say things like, "I'm grateful to my teacher, grateful to my parents, grateful to life." Even when someone helps them with a small thing, they never forget. Years later, they'll still check in, still mention that act of kindness like it just happened. And somehow life always works out for them. Not in dramatic ways like the movies, but in simple, steady blessings. The right help shows up. Their children grow up well. Their work stays stable. Why? Because gratitude is like an invisible magnet. It pulls good things toward you. I once knew a very successful man, wealthy, influential. But over time, he turned his back on the people who helped him rise. He dismissed his parents' sacrifices, lived as if he'd built everything on his own. And slowly, his relationships crumbled. His fortune remained, but his life felt cold. Eventually, we all learn. What makes a life truly meaningful isn't your bank balance. It's the hearts that still care for you. And love only stays where gratitude lives. If someone has ever helped you remember them, even if they don't expect anything back, the universe remembers. Gratitude is born from awareness, and that awareness creates new blessings. Many people don't understand why they fail. They think they're not skilled enough, not lucky enough. But sometimes, they're just missing one thing. Gratitude. Grateful for the one who gave you a chance. Grateful to your parents who worked quietly through their youth. Grateful to your teachers who listened when you struggled. Grateful even to those who hurt you because they helped you grow. The Buddha said in the Anguttara Nikaya, "One who is grateful and repays kindness is a noble being rare in this world." A society built on gratitude would have no cruelty, no betrayals, no heartless ambition, because someone who is grateful can't be greedy. Someone who is grateful can't be disloyal. In today's world, gratitude is how we stay human. You don't need to donate a fortune or build temples to create merit. Just remembering someone's kindness with sincerity is enough. A student once told me, "Every time I succeed at something, I close my eyes and whisper, 'Thank you, Mom. Thank you, teacher. Thank you to everyone who didn't give up on me.'" Simple words, but full of wisdom, because when you're truly grateful, you can't be arrogant, can't be numb. And that humility is where real wealth begins. Wealth isn't just having more, it's having a heart big enough to remember even the smallest kindness. A hug from the past, a forgiving glance, a meal someone shared when you were hungry, a sentence that helped you not give up, a friend who's long gone but you still thank them because once they were there. And if one day you find yourself stuck like life's doors are slowly closing, just pause and ask yourself, who am I still grateful for? Who have I forgotten? Because maybe that one answer is the very key that unlocks your next blessing. 11. True wealth is the abundance within. You know, real wealth isn't measured by what's in your bank account. It's measured by what's in your heart. A wise person, someone with compassion and inner peace, even without much money, is still one of the richest people you'll ever meet. There are people living in million-dollar homes, driving luxury cars, never short a digit in their account. Yet at night, they can't sleep. Their minds are filled with worry, anxiety, and sometimes a quiet loneliness that no amount of money can fix. And then there are those living in a small room, just getting by with a simple life. But every day, they wake up with peace. They're not chasing anyone. They don't need to prove anything. They know what enough means. And that is what real wealth looks like. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful phrase, "The one who knows contentment is truly rich." That's called the wisdom of knowing when enough is enough. It's not about passive acceptance. It's the deep understanding that happiness doesn't come from more or less. It comes from a mind that's no longer driven by endless cravings. On this path, I've met elderly folks in remote villages, people who've never even stepped into a big city. They owned little by the world's standards, but their eyes shone with clarity. Their smiles were warm, their presence calm, grounding. Just being near them felt like sitting by a fire on a cold day. One time, while visiting a quiet town in the southern US, I met a man in his 72nd. He lived in an old wooden house, no AC, no car. But every morning, he'd wake before dawn, boil water for tea, and light a small incense stick in front of a tiny wooden Buddha on his wall. He said, "If I can just do one kind thing each day, sweep my neighbor's yard, or call an old friend, I feel a little light turn on inside." He didn't have much money, but he had peace. And that made him far richer than many living in skyscrapers. The Buddha once said in the Dhammapada, "Even in a palace, without peace, you live in a kind of hell. But someone with kindness, wisdom, and equanimity, even eating a humble bowl of rice, lives like a king within." A lot of people think wealth is something we must fight for, hustle for. But there's another path, deeper, steadier. Wealth from within, born from understanding, from gratitude, from compassion, and from a heart no longer torn by ego and comparison. There's an old Buddhist story I love. In a tiny Indian village, there lived an old man poor by every measure. His only possession was a rice bowl. Yet whenever someone passed by hungry, he'd share whatever he had. When asked, "Why give when you have so little?" he smiled and said, "Because when I give, I receive warmth, merit, and a sense of freedom in my heart." That answer might sound simple, but it holds a deep truth. Some people grow richer, but live in fear of losing. The more they have, the more they worry. And in that worry, they lose peace. Meanwhile, a poor person with a loving heart lives in light. So, if one day you find yourself with little money, don't rush to think you're poor. Ask yourself instead, am I living fully? Do I understand what truly matters? Do I feel grateful for the little blessings of each day? If the answer is yes, then you are already rich. Rich in inner freedom. Rich in grounded presence. Rich in a life not chained to attachment. And that kind of wealth, no one can ever steal it from you. In today's modern world, it's easy to get caught in comparisons. Social media, television, endless ranking systems. They can make us feel less than just because we don't have a big house, fancy car, or six-figure savings. But the Buddha reminded us, comparison is the root of suffering. Each of us has a different path, a different karma, and a different kind of richness. Some are rich in wisdom, some in faith, some in the power to make others feel at ease. These are treasures that can't be taxed, can't be taken away, and never lose value. So always remember, the richest person isn't the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. Not everyone with money is happy. Not everyone with little is lacking. The real question is not, how much do I have? But, what am I doing with what I've been given? If you live each day with mindfulness, kindness, reflection, and generosity, then no matter what you own, you are already living a wealthy life. And no one can take that wealth from your heart. Each of us walks a different journey, faces different circumstances. But we all need to learn this one essential truth. Real wealth isn't about how much you've gained. It's about not feeling poor inside. It's when your heart is no longer ruled by endless wanting. When you're not drained by comparison. When fear of losing doesn't eat you from within. We've spent time reflecting on the power of contentment, humility, karma, gratitude, and the light of peace. If there's one takeaway from all of this, let it be this gentle reminder. True wealth isn't in your wallet, it's in your heart. And if your heart still knows how to love, how to be grateful, how to live kindly each day, then your heart has never truly been poor. Thank you so much for listening. If this video touched something within you, please don't hesitate to subscribe to Buddhism Seeds so we can keep walking this journey together. Click like, share this video with someone who may need comfort or clarity. And leave a comment below, tell us what wealth means to you, or share a moment where you felt truly rich in spirit. See you in the next video, where we'll continue to grow the light of wisdom and compassion together.